Hey everybody, this is Mr. Barr. Thanks for tuning into my video. This is the first of several videos on urbanization and immigration, which is our next module in American history. You'll find your note sheet in the resources folder on Schoology, and you can sit back and relax, and we'll walk you through lesson 1 of this terrific journey that is immigration and urbanization in America. The first lesson is called The New Immigrant. So it's all about the immigrants that are coming to America. We talked briefly about that in the last module with the job growth and the industrialization, but let's talk about specifically why they came to America. So your first essential question of the 4 that we're going to have in this module is, why did immigrants come to America? Why did immigrants come to America? Everybody has a story. Every American has a story about how their relatives came to America. It's probably similar for everybody, but everybody has that unique twist that makes it awesome and makes it the quintessential American story. So we're going to dive in and see if we can reach a conclusion about why immigrants came to America and what the impact that had on the country. Millions of immigrants entered the United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And if you break down the numbers, it's about 20 million or so from Europe. So most of them, a majority of them came from Europe. 200,000 or so from China, the West Indies and Mexico, the Caribbean and Mexico is going to be about 260,000 or so. When historians look at this, we group the reasons why people came to America into 2 categories. They were either pushed to the United States or pulled to the United States. Let's take a look at what that means. Push factors. Think of push factors as being forced to come because of conditions that are happening in your own country. Okay, so immigrants were pushed or forced to leave their countries because of war. There was a lot of unrest in Europe during that time, especially Eastern Europe, the countries on the side of Russia there. War, famine, widespread hunger, poverty, which goes along with the famine, okay, and prejudice. When we watch that, in a couple of days, we're going to watch a great video on Ellis Island, and one of the things they're going to say is they were fearful of the police because they were being discriminated against by government, okay? They didn't like it, and so they wanted to get out of that. They wanted to get away from that. They wanted to come to the United States and have a fresh start. At the same time, there's a bunch of immigrants that were pulled to the United States. They weren't so much forced to leave, but they wanted to come here. And they wanted to come here for dreams of economic opportunity, jobs, right? We talked about that before, that jobs are what kind of draw people. The idea of building a better life for you and your family is what we call the American dream. And that's what drew people here, even in the 1890s and the 1900s. Religious freedom. Why did the Pilgrims come? I mean, go back to 1620 and the Pilgrims at Plymouth. Why did they come? For religious freedom. That's been the quintessential reason why people have come to America our entire existence. Okay, so nothing should be surprising about that. But there was a lot of unrest and persecution and prejudice in Europe, and it was really affecting their ability to live their life. And so they wanted to come here for a fresh start. Social equality. They thought, look, nobody's going to treat me differently here. Everybody's going to be socially equal, right? It wasn't true, but that's what they thought, okay? Some immigrants were what we call birds of passage. They would come, stay for a little bit, work, and then go back. They didn't stay permanently. Some stayed permanently and settled and became American citizens. It's not going to surprise you that the journey to America in the 1890s and 1900s was incredibly difficult. In fact, I can't even really describe for you how difficult it was. I know you think it's hard, but let's take a peek at what happened. Most immigrants boarded in steerage, which was the lower deck of a ship. And they boarded in steerage because that was the cheapest way to travel. You gotta understand, these people are sometimes coming to America with nothing. You know, they're getting put on the ship with just whatever they have is used to make the journey to America. When they get here, they definitely don't have anything. I have this great quote from an immigrant that describes what steerage is like. There's neither breathing space below nor deck room above. There's 900 steerage passengers. They're packed like cattle. The stench became miserable. The food, which was terrible. is dealt out of huge kettles into dinner pails provided by the steamship company. When it is distributed, the stronger push to the front, the weaker get pushed to the back, and meals are anything but orderly procedures. So that right there, 900 passengers crammed into the lower deck of a ship like cattle for a journey of thousands of miles across the Atlantic Ocean to America. This is a great picture of what steerage looked like. Look at the amount of people there, and look at the lower deck. I mean, those are people that are just cramped in there. You know, they're doing laundry. There's no sanitation facilities, so the stench is awful. There's nothing easy or fun or not challenging about this journey. It was incredibly tough, and you have to be impressed with their courage and their bravery and the way that they were. Think about it. They wanted to be in America so badly that they gave that. They gave up. They endured that process to come to America. It humbles you a little bit. Most immigrants came through Ellis Island, which was an island in New York City, right in New York Harbor there, where they were met by the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty, of course, was a gift from France in the 1800s on our centennial of our independence in 1876. So the tablet on the Statue of Liberty talks about the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to be free. The tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to be free rode in their ship into New York Harbor and landed at Ellis Island. About 12 million immigrants were processed through Ellis Island between 1892 and 1954. So it was the kind of the hot spot for immigration entrance into the United States in the 18 and 1900s. Ellis Island earned the nickname Island of Hope for the hope that it provided for a new life in America, but it also earned the nickname Island of Tears because a lot of people were turned away and just were not let into the country for lots of reasons. You'll watch a video this week, a documentary on Ellis Island called Island of Hope and Island of Tears, and that's exactly what they talk about. The challenges and struggles that people faced once they got there were still incredibly hard to understand. This is the reception room. I took this picture maybe, 5, 6 years ago. At my previous school, I took a group of students out to New York City, and we went to Ellis Island, and this is the reception room. So this is me looking back down the reception room at Ellis Island. On the far end of it there, towards where underneath the American flags and underneath that big window is the little podium. And there was a big ledger there, and they would write down your name and how many were in your party. We'll look at an actual ship manifest when here in a week or so, when we do our immigration lab activity, which I'll explain a little bit later. But needless to say, they'd have a guy sitting there and he would just write your name down. And sometimes the names got changed because he just wrote it down wrong. Sometimes they would change it on purpose. It just depends on what the case was. But you would wait here, and then from there they would send you to the proper rooms for the next step in the process. Let's talk about life on the West Coast. It was a little bit different. There was a place called Angel Island. They had much stronger and stringent restrictions than Ellis Island did. So immigration from the Pacific, from Eastern Europe and Asia, was a lot more difficult. Many immigrants, when they would come to the United States, would settle in communities with other immigrants, okay, and think from the same country, and they did that. Because it gave them support and a connection. They spoke the language, they had the same customs, they had the same beliefs and values and ideas. It gave them kind of a connection in the new world. So that did happen. If you go to New York now, you see Jewish Little Italy, you see Chinatown, you see these different little ethnic neighborhoods pop up inside the city. And it's a really cool thing to see, but it's definitely something that happened as a result of this mass immigration. They built churches, synagogues, ate ethnic foods, wanted to fit in and assimilate with American life. Assimilate. Word sounds familiar. What's the difference here? When we were talking about the Native Americans in our second module, Westward Expansion, we talked about the fact that the government forced them to assimilate with the Dawes Act. This is different. These people want to assimilate. They want to be Americans. They want to fit in with the culture and traditions of America. By the end of the century, America is a melting pot. And you've probably heard this expression in various political debates over the history of the country, that we're a melting pot. We're a great, terrific mix of different religions, backgrounds, philosophies, ideas, races, ethnicities, whatever. We have a whole bunch of genders. We have a whole bunch of differences that make us great, and that's true here. By the end of this century, we're definitely a melting pot. We're a mix of a bunch of different people, but that made up America and made it what it was today. As much as Americans wanted to be immigrants, or as much as Americans wanted to be immigrants, let me rephrase that. As much as immigrants wanted to be Americans, it was difficult to still give up their customs and traditions from their previous country. That's going to lead to resentment. It just is. These feelings led to nativism, which is an extreme dislike of foreign-born people. We often today, in 2020, look at the divides in the country among races and ethnicities, and we wonder, why? This isn't new. It's been happening for 150 years. We've never really been able to settle it. As much as they wanted to be Americans, they weren't willing to give up the synagogues, the churches, the religious practices, the cultural practices of their home country, nor should they have to. Some people viewed that as a threat to America instead of viewed it for what it was, which is an element to help build America. These nativist feelings gave rise to anti-immigration groups and immigration reforms. In fact, we'll get to one in a minute that was pretty important. This is Angel Island on the Pacific. Again, much smaller, a little bit different layout and format, but that's Angel Island. That's the reception room at Angel Island. So just like Ellis Island had that big reception room, this is the reception room at Angel Island. You walk in, they take your name down, they log your info, and they have you wait there, and then they send you to the different parts of the campus, if you will, for processing. On the West Coast, Chinese immigrants were heavily discriminated against, and Japanese immigrants as well, during the 1870s. And the reason why they were discriminated against was there was a depression, a small economic downturn in the 1870s, and many Chinese workers would work for a lot lower wages, and so Americans thought they were going to take their jobs. And it got so bad that, in fact, in 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which barred Chinese immigration for 10 years and prevented Chinese who were already here from becoming citizens. Think about that. In the richest, most wealthy, most powerful, at this point, the industrial giant that is America, we have all these immigrants that are coming here that want to be Americans. They want to fit in, they want to settle down, they want to have a good life. But the Congress, the government of the United States, put a limit on Chinese immigration. So, we heard a lot about the Trump administration and its travel ban, and we're preventing a group of people from coming to the country. Yeah, that's what we did in the 1880s. And I'm not saying either one of those policies is good. I leave that up to you. And that's for the politics side of it to debate. History is cyclical. It repeats itself. We get ideas from our history. We learn from it. And we've learned from this that it wasn't a good idea, but that's what happened. And that fed into those nativist feelings. That concludes the first lesson of this module. Make sure you have your notes filled out, and I'll see you on the flip side. Remember, history's cool. Learn about it. Thanks for listening.